Welcome back to the channel. In this video I want to talk to you about Cyberpunk 2077, as I saw there was a plethora of new positive reviews in terms of the game, and I've had a look on Steam. It's got a total of 421,900 reviews, sitting at 76%. Recently, so that's within the last 30 days, there has been 17,000 reviews. Typically, to get a rough estimate of how many sales that is, you would times it by 30 on Steam. So 17,000 times by 30 is 510,000. So that's over 500,000 copies, and if we take the extra 10,000 off, the game's currently 50% off, so 500,000 times £25, which is currently how much it's going to cost you to buy the game. They've made about 12.5 million. Just complete rough estimate, but we'll say 12.5 mil is how much they've made. On PC, the game has never been really bad. Some players would have experienced terrible things in terms of performance and just gameplay in general. But the worst platforms for Cyberpunk was the PS4 and the Xbox One. They were pretty much unplayable for a lot of people. So it got taken off the Sony marketplace, the PlayStation storefront, and it was off there for over 100 days. But they added it back. The developers have been putting out update after update, but the thing is, they still haven't released any new content. However, there is an article that I want to read through, and it says, despite everything, Cyberpunk 2077 was a Steam top seller and most played title in 2021. The game came out at the very end of 2020, so it's been out for just over a year. Turns out folks were quietly riding into CD Projekt Red's Night City, but also riding into their pockets and enabling them to carry on doing what they did with Cyberpunk. They rushed it out. It was broken in many areas on most platforms. The game was just half-assed, and it wasn't the developers, it was the higher-ups that wanted that Christmas money back in 2020. The game was nowhere near ready when it released. It needed at least another 6 months to a year. But as I said, the devs have been working on updates to bring it to a much better state. And the last time I played it, it did feel a lot better. However, there are still problems. There hasn't been any DLC or anything like that for the game. It's just been updates to fix what's broken. So this article says, perhaps it was an understatement when we said Cyberpunk was having its first good day, when it creeped its way to the top of the Steam charts earlier this year. As it turns out, the beleaguered role-playing game, which has received a number of updates since its dumpster fire of a release, was quietly trucking along all of 2021 on at least one storefront. On Monday, and this was released on the 27th of December, so the Monday they're referring to would have been probably the day they posted it actually, but if not, it would have been the 20th of December they're talking about. PC giant Valve released a bunch of juicy info regarding what did well on its popular platform. There's a lot of stuff in there that you wouldn't expect, at least compared to popular media and community narratives. Battlefield 2042 is selling really well despite little hype. Nah, that game had far too much hype. Everyone got hyped around it, and it's completely flopping. But it's deserved. It shouldn't be doing well. It's an absolutely dreadful game in a lot of different factors, and there's no signs of it getting better anytime soon. They've made some updates and made some things smoother, but it's still not enough, especially for what they're charging and the content you get for that money. But perhaps I should expect that when it has an advertising campaign so pervasive, it has now replaced my nightly paralysis demon. This is all coming from the article. Amazon MMO New World, Valheim and Naraka Bladepoint, if I've pronounced that correctly, are some nice totally new inclusions to the top seller list as well. Then you've got the obligatory inclusions like Dota 2 and the completely unkillable GTA 5. There you go, said it again, that's why GTA 6 won't come out, because people will not drop GTA 5. Them shark cards are what's stopping GTA 6. Cyberpunk did not make the platinum cut where those games reside, but it did make an appearance a stone throw down onto the silver tier where games like Resident Evil Village live. What's worth noting is that top sellers doesn't denote number of copies but rather revenue, something that takes into account copies but also in-game transactions and DLC. A game like Cyberpunk, which is a single player game and doesn't yet feature microtransactions or DLC, likely has a hard time stacking up against games that heavily feature online experiences. Many of those multiplayer games have entirely different business models and they don't have all that other stuff weighing them down. 2021 was by all accounts an uphill battle for Cyberpunk and its devs. Remember, CD Projekt Red started the year with Cyberpunk still delisted from the PlayStation Store due to its rough state, and to make matters worse, had a giant security breach that saw game source code get held for ransom. Updates have been doled out throughout the year, and promises of next-gen versions, DLC, and more updates continue to come, but so have reports about apparent crunch. And even when some things were resolved, like its eventual return to PSN, it wasn't all merry. In that case, Sony warned users the game was still janky. If you went to buy it on the PS4, there were warnings that popped up on your screen or something like that that said, this game might be incredibly broken, so be careful you purchase it at your own risk. Now, despite all of that, we do know that the game was profitable for the studio from the get-go due to the sheer number of hype-based pre-orders and such. What you wouldn't necessarily expect is for that money to keep trickling in even after all the headlines and glitch compilations. Granted, the game has indeed recruited some fervent evangelists who love it despite all the flaws, or perhaps saw no flaws if they played on a powerful enough machine. Yes, the game has received countless number of fixes, but there are still plenty of reports of technical issues. You're not exactly seeing a No Man's Sky type turnaround here, and yet. Money coming in must mean people, right? While was a little further down the list on the dollar front, on the raw time front it killed. It's under the over 200,000 peak concurrent players, a category that excludes anything that had its numbers juiced due to things like, say, a free weekend. Obviously, this is just one platform out of a handful, and is specifically the one where Cyberpunk's core fanbase resides. After all, said base sprouted from GOG, which is CD Projekt Red's own PC storefront. Still, perhaps 2022 will be a less quiet year for the developer. Free next-gen upgrades will give those who didn't request a refund an excuse to take a second look, and everyone else might get enticed by the DLC if they play their cards right. Cyberpunk is on sale on Steam for 50% off, as we spoke about. If all of this has piqued your interest, I for one will continue to wait. Anyway, if you're interested in reading more about what did well on Steam, check out the full spread here. We might actually cover that in another video. But fun fact, to end this off, November saw the biggest number of totally new top sellers. So I'm definitely going to look into some of this stuff. But it says it in the article. It says it based on the reviews. Gamers can be so fucking stupid. Cyberpunk had one of the most disastrous launches in years, yet players are out there buying and buying and buying this game. So what happens in turn of people just going out and buying the game because they want to play it? They watch the playthrough and it looked good on YouTube. What happens is a player buys it, or like hundreds of thousands of players buy it, or whatever. The developers get all excited. They're like, yes, let's carry on working on this. The higher-ups find out and they realise how much money is coming in. Then updates come out for the game and they start releasing DLC. But in turn, you might get a couple more updates for the game. You might get a bit of DLC. But the higher-ups are only doing this stuff because they're seeing the money. It happens in every big title. Look at what happened with the release of the game. Absolutely dreadful. Yet they released it because it was around Christmas. There was a load of hype. They made a metric fuck ton of money. And they never cared. They didn't care that the game wasn't ready. Because they wanted to release it around Christmas. For all those extra sales. The exact same thing happened with Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. They wanted to release it in time for a TV series or movie or whatever to come out, so they had to release it at that certain time, yet the game wasn't ready. They were fully aware of game-breaking bugs, but they released it because they had to do it to basically sell it at the same time as the hype around the franchise, around the brand. So people buying this are idiots, buying Cyberpunk right now. I mean, you're getting yourself a deal as half price, But at the same time, you're buying a game that still has a lot of technical issues. And what else does it do to the publishers, like to their minds and their business model and stuff? It goes, oh, the fans are okay with what the game is currently doing in it, like how playable it is in its current state. So we'll just go and half-arse our next game. I've heard from a lot of people that The Witcher 3 was incredibly buggy at launch. That game made a load of money, so they released Cyberpunk in the same way. They rushed it out, the higher-ups. So what's going to happen when they release DLC? It's not going to have all that passion and stuff put behind it because it won't have enough time. And then what happens after the DLC? They've already made a Witcher mobile game to bring in all that extra revenue. They're going to release a new game after they're finished with Cyberpunk, and it's going to be the same, if not worse. The developers work their asses off, as it said in the article. There's talks of apparent crunch, which means a developer, instead of working a 40-hour week, might have to do 100-hour weeks, just to get things finished in time, based on what the publishers, the higher-ups, the investors, all those people want. So the next game CD Projekt Red release could be the same as Cyberpunk, could be even worse. It all depends on the time given, and a lot of AAA companies don't give their developers enough time to make stuff. But by people going out and purchasing Cyberpunk and leaving positive reviews will encourage more people to buy it, especially when it's on sale, and it's just going to be a snowball effect. And the publishers are going to make money for a product that isn't fully working, still has a load of technical issues a year later. But what we're going to do is leave the video there. I will see you guys in the next one. Let me know all of your thoughts and stuff down below. I hope you enjoyed it.